Hi, you guys. Welcome to Word of Hannah. Welcome back if you're returning. So, I wanted to talk about gluttony real quick. Um, the Holy Spirit, uh, I wouldn't say corrected. He did correct me. And just pointed out that the spirit of gluttony is taking over the internet right now, with the food trends and the mukbang and the try this and the commentaries and the try this place and try that place. And then everybody's a chef. But a lot of the food that's being used to like chef it up, a lot of the ingredients are not actually real ingredients, which I know that, a little trend here and there is cool, a little, treat here and there. I'm not necessarily too much against it, I guess. To me, I try not to do that anything in moderation when anytime the ingredients aren't real food, and or they contain a whole bunch of dyes, because to me that's like, oh well, a little poison won't you, because it's like, maybe not today, you know what I mean, but in all actuality, it's like if it was like a little bit of rat poison, it's like, would you really, make room for that and just be like, well, it's, mixed in with the rest of the ingredients to make it taste okay, so it couldn't possibly be that bad. That's the way that I look at the chemicals that are in a lot of the food. It's like, to me, it's like it's still not real food, it's still a chemical, it's still not comprised of anything that our bodies actually need, that our bodies are actually made up of, and it is actually a foreign object. So no. And it's always unnecessary, where it's just like whatever it is that is made, that is in it. For instance, for the most part, everybody likes ice cream, but there's pretty much one, maybe two brands, and it's not even the whole brand, not even the whole line across the board, where we can eat it because it just has milk, cream, maybe sugar, and then whatever flavorings are in it. We passed 99% of the ice cream section just to find maybe two types of ice cream. And mind you, it'll be like one brand, and the ingredients and the flavors rather are no-go. And then it'll be like one flavor that's usually vanilla, where it's like it has to be a specific vanilla, where it's like, you can have French vanilla, you can have vanilla bean, you could have homemade vanilla, and it'll be like all the vanillas are wrong, but it's just that one vanilla is like the one that's okay. And there's a lot of brands that are like that. So to me, when it comes to that, when it comes to a lot of things that we consume, I'm always looking at the fact that the ingredients aren't right. That's not those chemicals, the gums and stuff like that, any oils, that's actually not necessary to make ice cream. And granted, like when we would come up here to Milwaukee for the summer, one of the things my grandfather used to make, I think it might be kind of like have been known for it in the city, so was his vanilla ice cream. And he had like this old ice cream maker that had like wood around it and whatever else, and he always used to make vanilla ice cream at least every summer that we would come up here, because it wasn't every summer, because of course when we were younger, we were not stationed here, we were always stationed elsewhere. So he always made that. So I grew up seeing ice cream being made, and it was delicious, and so I knew that wasn't necessary, the ingredients, but it was something I kind of had gotten, used to accepting those ingredients, until God told me at the beginning of this year that cannot be the case anymore, that there cannot be any more leaving room for foods, like consuming a lot of foods that don't have real ingredients, or that have chemicals and all these additives. I went back to a different ice cream because it was on sale. It looked delicious. And after only eating the whole food ice cream, and it doesn't taste the same. The consistency is off. And I had to wind up throwing most of it out. But going back to the spirit of gluttony, I noticed that a lot of the trends some are, cool, where it's like, really delicious salads and stuff like that. But a lot of it is like, mixing, cheese with this and chips and dyed this and dyed that. And, we're about to have an unhealthy snack right now, but we also eat whole food all the time. But I just really wanted to speak to that because it's a lot of the trends that I'm seeing. It's like just the worst, most addictive foods. And then part of me is trying to ignore what this could have to do with like the beast system, because it's like, okay, let's say that the mark of the beast becomes something where currency is associated with, a mark or something like that, and then, of course, access to chemical based groceries is wrapped up in that system. Then if internet trends turns addiction to those foods, turns people into addicts, then what? Because if everyone or most people are addicted to foods that cannot be grown at home and they can only be accessed in a store, then that means that people will be more inclined to go along with it, because the food that they are addicted to consuming is something they could never produce at home, because they don't have a degree in chemistry and other sciences to make chemicals taste, look, smell like something that could be consumed without causing harm. It's like they can't recreate it. Where it's like the salads, you could grow anything and make this salad. Like, you could grow the ingredients to make a salad. You can raise chickens to make a mayo-based dressing to go on the salad. But if you were addicted to fruit roll-up on ice cream, or fried Oreos, or I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've seen. Imitation crabs soaked in butter. Some of the food trends we've seen, baby. Um, Grapes soaked in soda, rolled in Jello mix. Even though that does sound like a snack that, sounds like it would be good. And it's not, it's certainly not the worst out of all of them. And that does sound like a nice little snack, actually. But the Jello gives me pause, because the Jello is probably colored with dye, instead of like spirulina to make it blue. And then, some sort of natural flavoring. I don't know what is used to make blue taste blue, but I know it's not fruit. But that kind of thing, where it's like all these different, food trends, they're feeding like this, they're creating and feeding the spirit of gluttony. And this is coming from somebody who loves to watch those videos. I love to see people try foods and and all that stuff, but I always have to like put it in check, because without doing so, it could turn into a lifestyle of like an unhealthy lifestyle, where it's like, ooh, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to make this, I want to make that, I want to go here and, go there. And it's just like, it could just get to be excessive. And gluttony is definitely one of those things that the Bible warns about. And specifically, because at times the spirit of gluttony and food is used as a means to it's like it's used as a means, I want to say, of like control a little bit, where it's just like or ungodly influence, where God says, if you're given to gluttony, to be careful, where it's like dining with evil rulers, you will. Yeah, when you sit to dine with a ruler, note well what is before you and put a knife to your throat if you are given to gluttony. Do not crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive. And he goes on to talk about don't wear yourselves out to get rich, which of course, is something that has become part of our culture as well, is, doing any and everything to get money all the time. So this is Proverbs 9. What I read was 1 through 3, but then at 6, it says, do not eat the food of a begrudging host. Do not crave his delicacies. For he is the kind of person who is always thinking about the cost. The alternative says, or for as he thinks within himself, so he is. Or for as he puts on a feast, so he is. For he is the kind of person who's always thinking about the cost. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the little you have eaten and will have wasted your compliments. But going back to 3, for that food is deceptive. And Proverbs 23 calls the person serving the food a ruler. But then when you go to Ephesians 6:12, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, against the rulers, against authorities, powers in the dark world. So then when we lump in the behaviors of people who are identified, and these are, it's not just flesh and blood, but it says flesh and blood first, because the rulers, the authorities, the powers in this dark world and spiritual force of evil in the heavenly realms, those are the influences of the people who are flesh and blood. So Paul is saying, look past the person and look at their ungodly influence. So with that ungodly influence, when it's acting through a person and that person is feeding you, and you think about the things and the behaviors that are associated with people who are influenced by those different groups, you know that anything that you're being fed, you're not eating what you're seeing. You're not connecting with what you think you're connecting with. It's not what you think it is. And that's whether you're eating in the physical realm or in the spiritual realm. If you're eating with anybody who's influenced by an ungodly influence, then you know that food ain't right. And I've shared, and so many people have shared their testimonies about, people trying to gain a point of contact, gain legal grounds in the realm of the spirit to somebody by feeding them on this side of life. Now, I have not delved enough into it with God to go any further than what I have, but I just wanted to share the little bit that has been placed on me so far. I hope this is helpful.